Hi everybody, Chris here from Truly Holistic. In this video, we're going to talk about methylation. Now, methylation is actually the body's natural pathway to cleanse and detoxify itself. Now, before we get into how methylation and what it's connected to in regards to longevity and our DNA and so on, I've got a chart system which is called the broadcasting system, and I use that readily in client sessions, and there's a chart on that, which is the supplements chart, right? So the way the broadcasting system works is, of course, I'm dealing with clients all over the world, quite often through distance sessions, which is, through a Skype call, through Messenger, WhatsApp, through a video call. So of course, we're not using the physical substance. And what we do is we broadcast the energy signature of that supplement. Right. So we realize that, at the core, blueprint of everything we perceive in the physical world is energy, right? It's frequency. So on that chart, there's two supplements we go to essentially 95% of the time when we're working on all sorts of health problems for clients. And the two supplements we go to is MSM, which is an abbreviation for Methylsufonylmethane, and the other supplement is Betaine. Okay, so it was interesting that it would always go to those, but what we obviously found out eventually, that what makes those two supplements stand out is they are what are known as methyl donors, meaning they provide methyl groups to the body to support that natural process of a cleansing detoxification effect to the body we know as methylation. So that was kind of a wow moment in regards to that, because at Truly Holistic, we really see that all illness is either a congestion, obstruction, or blockage to flow. So it's imperatively important to get that person's body in a state of flow, right? And how that connects to methylation, and also what we would see as a cleansing or detoxification effect, is that really any form of cleanse or detoxification is simply doing this. It's bringing flow to an area that was once congested. That's what a cleanse does. That's the whole purpose of it, right? So we know that obviously if an area is lost its flow, right, and it's in a state of congestion, it means that accumulates can build up in that area, which then becomes the very definition of what we know as toxicity, right? An example we'll get to a little bit later on is about breast cancer. And we know that in regards to congestion, breast cancer is usually due to the lymph in that area, whether it's through the nodes or the lymph fluid itself, becomes congested in that area of the chest and the breast tissue, that all of a sudden things build up in that area and it creates an environment of toxicity that is the perfect breeding ground for what we know as cancer. So we'll get into that a little bit more and how it connects to methylation as well. So there are many substances you can look up that support and provide that support to the body to provide that methylation process, which is so important to keep the body clean and clear. And we talk about that a lot in sessions. We talk about getting a person's heart open. We see that as the primary source of flow in the body, because really the body is a rental that we're going to have for a lifetime to facilitate what we authentically are as a consciousness, which is really an energy that has wisdom to it, often referred to as a soul. And how we get here is through the heart. So when we facilitate our energy, we're also facilitating the very carrier wave that presents it here. And that is what we call the vortex. And vortex is the formal geometry of flow, right? So that's how it all connects up here. Okay, so we're going to bring that all into now what methylation, or what science knows that methylation can provide in regards to benefit. So let's go through that now. So it says here in regards to DNA methylation is a process that regulates, right? So regulation. So when I look at regulation, I think about trying to keep things in balance. And balance is a very key word. And funnily enough, when we get our heart open, right, which presents that flow, we're also, the heart has an innate role to try and balance everything. So balance and flow are just like that, okay? So is a process that regulates gene transcription, and we'll get to gene and what we perceive as gene and genetics as a human and what it really means, and is linked to longevity, right? So living a long time in many organisms, including humans. DNA methylation patterns can indicate biological age. So when I look at patterns and look at methylation, for me, that's whether we're providing a state of flow or not, right? It's either flow or lack of flow, we know as congestion, will have an effect on how much you age, right? And also how long you live, longevity. Okay. So that's interesting in itself, right, in regards to that. Now, before we move on, way we look at genes and genetics here is at Truly Holistic, and I'll tell you a little story how we got here. We see genetics as energetics, okay? Because see the body as, you know, as I said, it's going to be a rental you're going to have for a lifetime. But see the body as an interface, right? It's a computer, okay? Like any computer, it depends on the programming, the software that is programmed into that computer and how it will run. It's the same when you have that software or program on the computer, you're going to regularly check for updates and if we get those updates, it allows that computer to keep running, right? Flowing, working at its highest potential. But if it cannot upgrade or update the software and keep it relevant, right, being present in the now, what happens to that computer? It gets sluggish, loses function, and eventually it doesn't work, right? So there's a many kind of correlation to how we see a computer and see the body, see wellness, vitality, or illness, and that we see that what steers our ship, and what I mean by that, you know, what's guiding us, right, through what we're feeling, thought forms in regards to how we make choices, how we apply our energy, is essentially what then programs this computer. And what we're talking about there is frequencies, energetics, okay? At Truly Holistic, we make a lot of products which are part of Tensor Technology products that are made that facilitate what are called qubits, right? Again, the word bit is associated with unit of small information with computering. And those qubits are physical anchors to bring energetics in, okay? Again, to program the computer, the body. So that's when we're getting into genetics there. Now let's continue. It says here, methylation is a chemical reaction, right? Because you've got to look at, you know, from the physical sense, we see biological, we see chemical, we see hormonal, all these different aspects of the function of the body. Methylation is a chemical reaction that adds methyl groups, right? As we were talking about MSM and betaine before, they're methyl donors, to molecules like DNA, proteins, and lipids. This process can affect how these molecules then function in the body, right? So this comes into gene expression, right? And this will be the next one we get into too, because when we look at symptoms, right? The way we look at symptoms here at Truly Holistic is it's not just saying that something's wrong, right? That's how we get conditioned to perceive when we get symptoms through the body. Symptoms is how the body expresses itself, okay? And it's expressing itself accordingly to the frequencies, what's steering your ship, right? Those energetics. So we can associate that then, that's an expression associated to the energetics, genetic expression, gene expression. Okay, this is pretty cool stuff, right? Right, and obviously that expression through the body is presenting an awareness of you, to you, about the current state of the body, the function of the body, right? The body's a form of discernment. Really, the way that we've been conditioned and taught to perceive symptoms in the body is really is a massive misinterpretation, misunderstanding of the body. because we kind of then vilify the body, right? It's like, oh, the body's falling apart, stupid body. But it's not stupid. It's doing what it's supposed to. It's doing its role. Its role is it's a form of discernment. It's supposed to let you know about the current state that you're presenting your body, and it's up to you to change that state. It's doing what it's supposed to do. It's just, again, when we're in mind thought mentality, we don't do a good job in interpreting and understanding the body, which really is expressing itself not through thought, but what you feel, right? Which is a completely different pathway altogether. That's more connected to the heart than it is the mind, okay? So the next bit here with methylation is gene expression. We just talked about that. And it says methyl groups can attach to DNA to turn genes on or off, right? Because that's how they look at gene expression. It's like turning a light switch on or off, right? Which then regulates the production of protein. So the way, it's like recently I did a post about junk DNA, right? So science sees all this DNA that is not associated to any biological function of the body, and hence they call it junk DNA. But the way I look at it is that, again, it's a comprehension at a limited level that it's junk DNA because we can't understand where it connects or what it associates with. But the way that we look at junk DNA here at Truly Holistic is we see that as infinite potential that's waiting to be unlocked. Okay? And when we allow the mind thought mentality to steer our ship, it limits our experience. And no wonder there is DNA or genetics or energetics that are not being unlocked. But when we get into our heart, which facilitates our soul, which wants us to have expansive experience, then all of a sudden, it's not junk DNA anymore. We can unlock all that potential. So yeah, pretty cool stuff. So, so really, and we'll get to a certain expression of a gene in a minute that's associated to breast cancer, but we'll get to that in a minute. Now, methylation is associated with disease risk. Okay, so I've already mentioned about methylation provides flow, right? Cleanse, detoxification pathway for the body. And of course, if we lack that flow, what does that do? Increase risk of disease in the body or illness. Now, we also talked about gene expression of symptoms through the body, which makes us uneasy, and uneasy is the word dis-ease as well. So it's interesting how that's all connected up. But what it says here about disease risk, it says changes in methylation, right, which is perhaps losing your methylation pathway, which is losing your flow, right? You're not allowing the body to present that natural state to keep things clean and clear, can increase the risk of developing certain diseases like cancer, right? So what we know about cancer is cancer cannot form in a flowing state, which is when we have methylation going in the body, right? Your body has to be in a congested state for cancer to form. We know that cancer feeds on fear, and the mind tends to facilitate an awareness or an attention to fear. And we know the intelligence or consciousness of cancer comes from the same place. So cancer is very associated to a human that is steered or guided by the mind, out of thought, out of mentality. And as I've said before, when we are doing that, we don't create a natural state, which is a state of being, and we lose our flow, we lose our vortex. So we provide a congested state in the body that then supports and promotes cancer. Okay. Now it says here, for example, increased methylation of the BRCA1 gene, right? So this is the gene that's, increases the risk of cancer. And the crazy thing out there is that when people belief structure is based on what science is presenting, right, in regards to gene expression, about genetics, compartmentalizing genes such as BRCA1, right? You've got to remember the word compartmentalize. Compart means to break everything into parts without knowing the whole, and mentalize using mentality, which is out of mind. It's limiting our insight into what it's all about. It's ridiculous. And you're seeing women out there that haven't got any symptoms of cancer, but because they know they have that gene, they get their breasts removed. Again, it's just what we find at True Holistic. What creates breast cancer is lymph congestion, right? Again, that word congestion. And what does that mean? A lack of flow, which means a lack of the body's natural pathway to provide flow, methylation. Okay. It's not about that gene. It's not about getting into, because that's just a scare tactic. It's all fear based on that gene. You got to realize that what we find with breast cancer is the lymph fluid and the lymph nodes, because there's a lot of nodes in that area, become congestion. What happens there? Accumulates build in that area, because really the lymph system is your waste disposal unit. It's supposed to carry stuff and purge it out of the body. But if it loses its flow, its vortex, things sit in there for too long, becomes toxic, and that's when cancer forms. Okay. So we know how to address that at its core, not going on the fear tactics of, again, compartmentalizing and labeling specific genes. That's just ridiculous. Okay. So another thing it says here, methylation is epigenesis. So genesis, like original beginning of, and what the definition of what they give for epigenesis is the process by which organisms develop from a seed, spore, or a human egg through a series of steps that involve cell differentiation and organ formation. So we're talking about, the formation of an embryo, really, where you got the sperm and the egg, of course, right, in regards to conception. And we're talking about that process there, right? So so that's interesting. And it says methylation plays a critical role in this regulatory, again, a regulation, keeping things balanced. So when things go out of balance, that's when we have problems, because balance is associated with flow, right? Unbalance, congestion. And generally, as the human, the way that we are taught to use mind, thought, mentality as our original primary discernment method, we forge an environment, a state that's not our natural state, which means we're putting all the odds against ourselves immediately, which means a collapsed field, which means our body congests, blocks, obstructs, doesn't present flow. Okay, so very interesting stuff. Let's have a look. Just have a look if I've made sure I've gone over everything. Now, this is, so the summary of that, right? Methylation is our body's natural pathway to cleanse and detoxify itself, which is flow. Okay. Now, this is directly connected also to our ability to go with the flow, right? You hear the expression, go with the flow, or be in the flow. And I love that expression, because be is short for being. And being is our natural state. That's why we're called human beings. Okay. So that is very relevant to what happens on a DNA or genetic level. It's amazing. It goes back to just the simplicity of that. Right. So, but as a human, when we look at flow, right, whenever I bring up, we need to bring more flow in, obviously I'm coming from a perspective of energy, because that's what you authentically are. But again, we are conditioned not to see ourselves as energy, right? We are so ingrained in the physicality of ourselves, right? Which has led to the biggest fear of all that each human has, is that when we lose our physicality, which we know is death, there's a big fear around that, because that's all we know ourselves as, right? So is that when we talk about flow, when you need more flow, immediately someone will go, hey, does that mean I need to exercise more? I need to move more, right? Which is, again, seeing ourselves in a physical sense. Really, when I'm looking at flow, I'm talking about an energy sense, and that is more about knowing how you as a consciousness, you as a soul, as an energy gets here. And a big aspect of that is the heart, and getting the heart open, letting go of the embodiment of the mind, thought, mentality, because that's not you. That is just providing you to provide a congested state that doesn't support you. We have to get the heart open and be guided through feel, be guided by what you are, which we would call a soul. Now, and I'll give you examples, right? That there are athletes out there, right? That they'd get studies, get blood work done and all these profiles done on them, and then they are classified as an athlete, right? Which are, the top of the tree in regards to physical health. So why do we see athletes out there that are running, right? They're moving a lot, they're exercising a lot, but they drop dead? Why? Because they're dropping dead of a heart attack. And what's a heart attack? Is that flow? No, it's not. It's a congestion, obstruction, blockage to flow, right? Even though they are moving and exercising a lot, which is perceived on a physical level as getting a lot of flow into the body. What that tells me, it's not about the physicality. It's about understanding what you authentically are as a consciousness, which is energy. And it's about presenting more of yourself as that, which is the very flow vortex that you require, that the body requires to support itself, to sustain itself, to present itself as wellness and vitality. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video, the insights that are presented. Please like the video if you've enjoyed this video. Please consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't done so. And also push the notification bell to be notified when the next video drops. Make sure to go and check my website at trulyholistic.net, where you can go and book appointments for greater insights, for clearing work, again, right, to get the heart more into play, get more flow and more methylation through the body. We can help you with that. We do that all the time with clients. You can go to my appointment page at trulyholistic.net/appointments/ go and check it out. Go and check me out on my other social media platforms on Facebook, which is just Chris Fabish or trulyholistic.net. I'm also on Instagram, truly_holistic. Also on TikTok under Truly Holistic as well. So go and make sure you check me out and follow me and like me on those media platforms as well. Till next time, catch you later.